In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern where over the last few days that I haven't uploaded because of Christmas, of course, we have seen the models, but not only the models, also the National Weather Service alongside the Climate Prediction Center become way more confident in a very cold and very snowy January ahead. So we're going to be discussing that in today's video where we're going to see massive amounts of Arctic blasts and also snowstorms. So let's just dive into things, and we're taking a look at the past 30 days. This is the final 3 days of November plus the past 27 days of December so far. And as you can see, December wasn't too shabby either. We had a lot of warmth in the west, which is what we call a positive PNA, Pacific North American Oscillation, and this causes cold air to dive into the eastern states. And sure enough, that's exactly what we've seen kind of happen here. The Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Midwest, Southeast, all have seen a colder December, and they're almost guaranteed to see, by the time we're looking at the full December out, basically looking back at it, it's going to look cold. It's going to look about like this. We're pretty much locked in at a colder East Coast and also kind of Great Lakes and Midwest December. Now, speaking of the Climate Prediction Center, here's the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, fresh, uploaded today. So this is from December 27th, issued by them today. And this is for the January 2nd through January 6th timeframe. So the very beginning of January. And what we see is basically the same thing that we've seen in December, just a lot more dramatic. So we see this positive PNA pattern out west, warmer temperatures, with cold air diving way deeper in this instance than what we've seen in the majority of December. We've seen some really cold air masses move in, but I suspect that this is going to be even colder here. So we're very confident in colder temperatures here in the east. And even beyond that, when we look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, I mean, look at the difference. It's hardly anything different. Alaska has a lot bigger of a change there when you look at the bottom left corner than we see here in our actual continental United States outlook. What we're seeing is huge amounts of warmth once again along this west coast area, which is again that positive PNA, and more deep diving Arctic air into the eastern states. This is all going to set up and allow for potential cold, well, yeah, of course, cold air, but snowfall, snowstorms. They're also, during this 8 to 14 day outlook, calling for some above average precipitation along the east coast. That's going to be a huge combo, of course. And you might be thinking, because this is January 4th through 10th now, okay, well, that's the first 10 days. So, that's just that, and we're probably going to get warm after. But here is their issued today 3 to 4 week temperature outlook. This is January 11th through January 24th. So the kind of following 14 days after that 10th time frame. And it's a lot of the same. Highly confident in above normal temperatures to continue for the west here, so that positive PNA rages on, and we continue to see the cold air just free flowing straight into the eastern states, which again is going to continue to set up a perfect pattern for not only that severe cold to persist through January, but also very high amounts of precipitation at times. So let's take a look. First off, I guess we should do our European model first, like we've been doing. So we'll look at the European model and then the GFS model. And what we get here on the European model is for kind of tomorrow afternoon. This video is coming out a little late, so we'll talk about this first. And we get some precipitation here throughout the deep south, southeast, mid-Atlantic, northeast here. We're having some storminess around for these areas. So expect heavier showers, maybe even some thunderstorms. And we do see some snowfall up here as well for the northern Cascades, Northern Rockies also. So we're kind of still in this warmer pattern for the final couple of days of December here. But I should mention we do have a low here over the area between the Great Lakes and the Hudson Bay. If you've heard me say that, you've probably watched one of my videos over the last month because we've mentioned this a lot. This has been a huge catalyst in bringing cold air eventually into the eastern states. So let's see what happens by Sunday. And it's not here yet by Sunday by any means. Sunday the 29th here, to 2 days from now. What we're seeing is a 990 millibar here around Indiana or perhaps Ohio. Cold front there to the southeast, and then a pretty significant warm front to the north as well. So this is going to be a big rainmaker for pretty much everybody involved. But not only that, I do suspect severe weather on the southern end is going to be a big player as well, because we've seen some tornadic activity even throughout. I think we had one in Alabama and one in Louisiana today. That's kind of not associated yet. But we're having that activity and sufficient pattern for that activity in the southeast currently. And we suspect that we're going to have a more large scale event for the kind of Saturday, Sunday timeframe, starting out in the deeper south, moving into the southeast, and maybe even a little bit of like North Carolina, Virginia, where we probably are going to end up at least a marginal risk of severe weather, if not a slight risk. So definitely looking pretty stormy here in the southeast to start things out, but quite warm and quite humid, especially along the east coast here. We have this warm front overhead. Expect this to be pulling the warmth and humidity up the coast. It'll be near normal to slightly above normal temperatures. Definitely pretty warm compared to what we're currently seeing and have been seeing for a few days. But that's what's going to allow for this potential thunderstorm activity to really flourish. We also see out west some storminess happening, especially the northwest. Cascades, Sierra Nevada, and Northern Rockies seeing snowfall by Sunday the 29th. We're getting ready to see a big change in a moment. Here's Monday the 30th. And this is an interesting date. Your jet stream's kind of riding through the middle of the United States now. So colder to the north, warmer to the south. It might seem like that's kind of the standard, but really it's not. Typically we have a trough or a ridge on each side. So what this will actually do is bring below normal temperatures to a lot of the north here, below their normal. So I get so many comments that are like, obviously it's going to be cold in the winter, but this is colder than what's normal on December 30th for those areas. And to the south of that jet stream, likely a bit warmer than what's typical for December 30th as well here. So because we don't have a trough or a ridge on either side, it's kind of north to south, which is not the most usual thing, which you would think it is, but it's really not. As we keep going towards Tuesday the 31st, what we get is a Hudson Bay low, a pretty strong one, 988 there on the southern tip of the Hudson Bay, and then a 998 here over West Virginia. And these are kind of working in tandem. They're going to bring the cold air in overnight. I'm suspecting that this one is a secondary low, and we have a bit of a cold front underneath of sorts at play here. But New Year's Eve here on the 31st is going to be quite warm, especially if you're in this corridor here. It's still going to be a little mild. Already cooled down for the northern plains, upper Midwest, Great Lakes, even some of the central plains and Midwest. Northeast is cooling already, but for New Year's Day, the first day of 2025, this is the look. And instantly, we see this Hudson Bay low kind of just floating around. It's kind of doing a swirl here. And then we see this low off of Maine, and suddenly we have a jet stream that is very, very supportive for cold and snow. So we have this cold air pouring in to the central and eastern states. It's going to be like somebody flicked a light switch and we see a sudden overnight switch in the temperatures. Also, the west gradually warming. This is that positive PNA setting up and beginning here for these areas. Also, storms like to ride along this jet stream, so that's why we're seeing an increased storminess here across the northwest as that jet stream is pouring right through. So some snowfall for the Cascades, rainfall for more lower elevation regions. And even with this storm here, I would suspect we could see some interior and especially high elevation snowfall throughout the northeast especially. As we keep going, now that we're in this cold phase, Thursday the 2nd, a bit dry unless you're around the Great Lakes where there is some lake effect snow flying around. We also see some for the northern plains and kind of northern Great Lakes here as well. Growing positive PNA now, kind of more expansive by this point. Below normal temperatures in the east, obviously, by Thursday the 2nd. Here is Friday the 3rd. It looks so similar. I mean, we have the warm temperatures continuing to expand out west. Truly a full-on positive PNA now by this point, with the warm temperatures really expanding all the way to that Canadian border. We see cold air diving very far south into the deep south here. Even some mixed precipitation happening here across Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia there. Could become a little bit more, could be a southern slider type storm, especially, I mean, watch this precipitation. It moves from Missouri straight through Kentucky, Tennessee, tries to move towards Virginia and North Carolina. This one shows rainfall, but I could see that being snowfall, kind of minor snowstorm for those areas. We continue with the cold air for the Saturday, the 4th time frame, some snowfall in the northwest again. Sunday the 5th, we do lift up a little bit as we get some colder air working its way into the Rockies. A little ridge here over the Midwest, and then a little bit of a second dip in that trough there for the East Coast. Still way colder than normal for these areas. Also, some snowfall for the northern plains and upper Midwest is persisting for Sunday, January 5th. As we keep going towards Monday, the 6th of January, we see 1,001 millibar low pressure center there near Ohio. So some snowfall happening here across the Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, interior, mid-Atlantic, and Northeast here. This warmth is stacking back up suddenly. So we're kind of in the opposite pattern from what we've seen in the past 5 winters, where those previous winters, what we would mostly see is like 5 to 7 days of warmth, followed by maybe 1 to 2 days of cold, very short-lived, and it moves on. Now we're seeing a pattern, and we've seen a lot of this through December, where it seems like we get 5 to 7 days of cold, followed by maybe 1 or 2 slightly above normal days before that cold just moves right back in. And that's what I think we're seeing here on Monday. Some snowfall across the Rocky Mountains, also the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, some snowfall here. But the jet stream already moving back into prime position for cold here. A little bit of warmth in the southeast, but that's going to move out as well here over the coming hours. What we see is that low slides offshore. It's a 987 there near New Jersey, bringing snowfall to Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, New York, and New England here. This low currently being here. If we saw it trend a little bit east, you would likely be seeing some East Coast snowfall on here as well. So that would be a very small shift for about, 10 days out. And that would have massive implications. Also, with this positive PNA, what we're seeing is it's really, really climbing up the West Coast, way past the Canadian border now. And typically what I see after these types of climbs is what we're going to see is this cold air move in, and it's going to violently move even further towards the south. This does in the west, the opposite is going to happen in the east. So when we see this intensify, so does the cold in the east, as a rule of thumb. So look at this violent kind of deep dive towards the south. Tuesday on the 7th here is what we're looking at, and heavy snowfall persisting for New England. Could be a blizzard of sorts with a 974 millibar low pressure center just offshore of New England. I mean, that would be crazy, crazy stuff. Wednesday, we see this fully deep dive. I mean, we're seeing the Gulf Coast, Florida seeing pretty cold temperatures for what they're used to. Wednesday, the 8th here, we're seeing that. Some snowfall showers around, but nothing major to really speak about here. Thursday, on the 9th, it's still, near Florida with that really deep diving cold air. Here's the 10th, and it looks like we're getting another one of those little mild pushes before the cold air moves back in. Because even when we see this kind of lift off and move back in, watch what stays true. Watch the warmth out west. This does not move. This does not really go away by any sort. So watch this. Thursday the 9th, that cool down in the east gets a little bit more mild, and it's still a positive PNA the whole way through. So as long as this stays the same, you can expect these warm-ups to be very, very brief, and it's really just the cold kind of charging back up to go in for round 2, 3, 4. It can't stay constant over these southern areas, but it's going to keep bringing in more Arctic air from Canada, basically. And the end of this model run is probably another snowstorm perhaps shaping up. We have some broad low pressure right here, some cold air just moving in, and I suspect this would also kind of move up somewhere into here. So we would see maybe another threat if this model run went a few more hours. Now the GFS model, just to get kind of a different perspective, we're going to get kind of the same thing here. Nothing really different here over the coming days. Here's again January 1st, 2nd, deep Arctic air moves in, and positive PNA develops in the west. We kind of just stay that way. Then we get that same exact kind of Midwest, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and interior eastern look, except this low is a little further offshore. So look at this. We get New York City, Connecticut, Rhode Island, very close to DC, getting some snowfall on kind of the bullseye of it, right near that rain snow line. So this is a little bit more of a favorable look for those areas, but a similar storm to what we saw in the European model. And we don't get that super deep diving cold air until about the 9th on this model. And what we get happening is not a completely put together look, but a couple of areas of low pressure. And this is going to create a very major snowstorm of sorts. If it came together, we would likely see something very much so more coastal. We're going to see a little bit more of an inland look here for most areas. And what we're seeing by the time we reach Friday the 10th is that deep diving cold air still occurring. 990 near southern New Jersey, so very similar to that first European model, very heavy snowfall event. And we're seeing Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland, DC, Pennsylvania, New York, and into New England seeing heavy snowfall here, and that's just going to continue as we move on. Again, coastal Virginia, the Delmarva, coastal New Jersey, seeing heavy snowfall with this one. It gets down to 976, so another major blizzard here, just a different timing. So both models have a major blizzard at this point, and it looks like we're about to move into one of those pretty brief warm-ups. Again, his model can show whatever, but the Climate Prediction Center is calling for cold temperatures to kind of prevail straight through like the 20th and beyond of January. And really, this warm-up isn't even supported on the GEFS model, which is the ensemble model, which is a little bit more useful at this range for broader patterns. So I'm highly skeptical of a more long-term warm-up if this was to shape up to be one. Probably will be gone tomorrow when we look at the models together. Now, as we take a look at the total precipitation, this is according to the European model. We get tons still for the Northwest into the Rockies here. This has been the fact of the matter for, I would say, a couple of weeks now. We get a lot of storms moving through the interior areas here of the East, near the coast here of the East, and this leads to overall above average precipitation for all of these areas. As we take a look at the kind of anomalies here, you can see that taking place. I mean, this Northwest corridor above average, then also this interior eastern area seeing well above average as well. So you get the two storm tracks, these storms diving in with the jet stream, and then these storms moving through with the jet stream as well. As we take a look at the total snowfall, no surprise that this is dramatically increased for basically everywhere east of the Rockies. So when we look at this, it's actually decreased for a lot of these western areas a little bit. Even though they get a lot, it's still a little less than we were seeing days ago. We're seeing a lot of snowfall plowable. I mean, the blues are 2 to 6 inches, purples are 6 to 10, and then pinks are 10 to 20. Pastels are 20 inches plus here, like we see in New England. So we're seeing plowable for the northern plains, upper Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast here. Very substantial snowfall over the next 15 days. And we're going to get really good agreement on the GFS, unless you're in the northern plains and upper Midwest, where this model kind of has a donut, is what I would call it, or kind of a snow hole, where we get snow around the ring, but in the middle, you're basically left high and dry. Now, these eastern areas, we're also getting really decent amounts in here, which is very interesting. We're getting a couple of inches, I mean, far south into the Mid-Atlantic here. I think the European model didn't have that, but still very interesting to see. And I wanted to show you guys this as well. This is the European extended model. We've been looking at the temperature graphs from this one, but they also have a snowfall map, the 46-day total snowfall map. And please take this with a grain of salt, because this particular map is not standard to use for any sort of accuracy. But I think the reason I want to show it today is to show you what this model is showing right now. And this is what I would look at as the potential for what this pattern could bring over the next 46 days, or in other words, into early February. We still have a good month and a week or so, probably 5 weeks of winter after this point as well. But heavy amounts in the west, that's obvious. But the east here seeing substantial amounts, even, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Southeast Virginia, my neck of the woods, some snowfall in these parts as well. Definitely substantial. And then here's the eastern view. So a lot of people getting at least their averages, or if not above it, in these deeper south areas just over the next 46 days or so. I know these areas average kind of 5 to 10 inches. So getting, 5, 6, 7 inches is basically your seasonal average. And then we're seeing feet for New England, the Mid-Atlantic here, over the next month or a little bit more, as well as the Great Lakes, probably 1, 2, 3 feet as well. So this would obviously be really good. I don't think anybody would be complaining about this. And I think for some areas, the potential is a whole lot higher, such as areas in the Mid-Atlantic, northern Mid-Atlantic, like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, even maybe DC, Northern Virginia, as well as even New England. If we got multiple major snowstorms, I could see it being higher than this as well. Of course, if we just happen to get unlucky and none of the storms lined up with the cold, it could be less than this as well. But I think it's a good middle ground approach for some folks as to what a pattern like this can really truly do. Now, the European model's temperature forecast, let's take a look at it. I mean, we're a little cooler along the east for just a little bit longer. We are going to warm up here for Saturday, Sunday, almost coast to coast here, Monday the 30th, and then Tuesday the 31st. But look at on Wednesday the 1st of January here, Suddenly, we've gone from pretty far above average temperatures to near normal to below normal for a lot of these areas. It's only going to get worse here as we move into the second, as we get a little bit more severe cold. The third, more of it's on the way. Here comes the fourth, though, where the greens are 10 to 15 degrees below normal. Let's keep going because it's going to get even more intense. Sunday the 5th. Let's take a look at Tuesday the 7th, and here comes a resurgence of it. Wednesday the 8th, and look at this. Again, the greens are 10 to 15 degrees below normal. Those purplish blues are going to be 15 to 25 degrees below normal, and the magentas 25 or more degrees below normal. So massively below normal temperatures here in the east, while we see a raging positive PNA for a long time here in the west. Very far above normal temperatures out there. That sticks around too. Thursday looks very cold. Friday looks quite cold. And then it looks like we're kind of resurging. More of this is about to pump its way in. Again, staying warm here in the west. Let's take a look at the GFS model and see where we get agreement or disagreement. We stay warm until about the 1st, where we get some cold moving in. 2nd, it's really establishing itself. 3rd, same thing. But then it's like the 4th here getting a little bit more intense. 5th here as well. 6th, 7th, we get a brief warm up, but then here comes that next round of it, and it gets more intense here as well. Again, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So pretty good agreement here, even at the end of the model run being colder. But look at the west, a little bit of cold air. I'm a little doubtful at this point that this would be the end of the positive PNA, but that's what the GFS model is showing here, the end of the positive PNA. So if this model ends up being correct, I would definitely give it an A+ at this point, but no other models are really agreeing with that at this point. Now, the European extended model, the same one we looked at for the Snowfall, let's look at the temperatures, and this is 7-day increments. So here's the 27th through the 3rd, quite warm, mostly due to the 27th through the 31st, not the 1st through the 3rd. But as we look at the let's just do the 1st through the 8th to make things simple, much cooler. And then as we move towards the 8th through the 15th, even colder. And then here's the 15th through the 22nd, still quite cold. Confidence is lowering though as time goes on because it's getting a little bit later on, but we still have cold in the east left over. GFS extended model, so kind of just a different perspective. Again, warmer in the east through the 2nd. Here's the 1st through the 8th, a little less cold on this one, but we really cool right down on the 8th through the 15th. I would say this is even colder than the European model. So the trend here is the European model is quicker with the cold, but a little less intense. The GFS model, it takes a couple of extra days to get established, but it's more intense once it really works its way in. Let's take a look at the 15th through the 22nd, and this is even colder a little bit, but still confidence is lowering, and then even beyond 22nd through the 19th, or 29th, better yet, really low confidence at this point. This is just kind of a splatter of colors on the screen at this point, so hard to even take anything away from that. Let's take a look at the 7-day increments here on the CFS daily model as well. 28th through the 4th, warmer in the east. But here's the 1st through the 8th getting colder. And then here is the 8th through the 15th, massively cold in the east. And then the 15th through the 22nd, a little lower confidence. So the big thing with these final 3 models we just looked at, the long range ones, is they all agree on pretty much everything. I mean, that first week of January is quite cold and certainly colder than the final couple of days of December they are going to be. But that kind of sweet spot appears to be like the 7th through the 14th approximately for the coldest temperatures as of right now. And beyond the 14th, it's just lower confidence overall. So it could be even colder for that time frame, but we just don't know yet. But definitely leaning towards the 7th and beyond being colder than the days before that. Anyway, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being patient as I've taken some time off. It's been a great year doing YouTube, and, I just decided I was feeling a little under the weather, also having, festivities with family, of course, and just kind of staying busy with all that. I figured it'd be fine if I took a couple of days off, and I realized every day, I was like, since it's been so cold and we've had so much to talk about this winter, it kind of looks like every day we're talking about the same thing because it really just is like a revolving door. So I just wanted to give it a break for a little bit, see how things kind of establish themselves. And here we are. Things have intensified, and I'm really excited to talk daily with you guys about this upcoming stuff because it looks intense. Be sure to subscribe. We upload almost every single day unless I take a break. Be sure to hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.